Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Go Find Nervous Show. I'm your host, Jake Bolig. This is the show where we find out what's made people nervous on their journey to success and then what they did to overcome that nervousness. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our guest today before we get started. I just had a fantastic interview with this gentleman, and I want to tell you about him. He's known throughout the world as a top personal development influencer. He's been named one of the top 50 speakers in the world and one of Inc. magazine's top 100 leadership speakers. He's a member of the Motivational Speakers Hall of Fame. He has a coaching practice working with successful entrepreneurs and executives. And on top of all that, he's written 22 books, which have been translated into 14 languages. My guest today is Chris Widener. I hope you guys enjoy it as much as I did. Let's pick up this interview in progress with Chris Widener. All right, Chris, thanks for being here today. You tell a story about making your first sale at the age of 14 years old. Who was nervous in this deal and who wasn't nervous in this deal?
It's kind of a funny story. You know, long before I was interested in success and motivation and business, I was 14 years old. My mom was working at Group Health Hospital in Seattle, Washington. And one of the guys that she worked with, who I knew, because I used to stop in after work and sometimes, you know, after basketball practice, or whatever, we'd drive home together. And so I was 14 years old. And this guy, I don't even remember his name, but he was a records filer. And he had to have been 40 or 45 years old. So all he did all day long was filed records. You've probably been in a medical filing room or something. You've seen it as you're looking on your doctor, thousands of records. Yeah. All he did was he took them and he filed. What a horrible job. I can't imagine doing that. The monotony of it would drive me nuts. Mm-hmm. What was driving him nuts, didn't pay him well. He had a rich uncle. And he borrowed $7,000, and I was 14, so this would have been 1980. He borrowed $7,000 from a rich uncle, and he bought the regional rights to a self-watering flower pot. And it was kind of cool. It was like they were about this big, and it was two pieces. The bottom piece is where you put the water, and then the top piece is where it's sat down in it, and that's where you put the plant. And it kind of had a little nipple that went down into it like that. That was how you extracted the water. And then there was a lever along the sides. And if you had a cactus, you put it to the far left. If you had like a African violet that needs a lot of water, you put it all to the right. And it extracted more or less water. So this guy says to me, "Hey, how would you like to make a little bit of money?" I said, "I'd love to make some money. How can I help you?" And he says, "Would you like to sell some of these flower pots?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd love to sell flower pots." And he says, "Okay." And I said, "How much are you going to pay me?" So, "I'll pay you $1 for every flower pot." And so I said, "Done deal." Now, this guy thought that as a 14-year-old, I was going to probably drag 10 or 15 of these flower pots and walk the streets and knock on doors and sell them to little old ladies. I made one phone call. And I can't remember I think it was Pay and Pack was the name of the company, but Pay and Pack was like a regional home center. It was before we had Lowe's and Home Depot and all these kinds of things. So anyway, I called him up and I said, "Hey, I've got a self-watering flower pot. Can I come in and show it to you?" And the guy said, "Yeah, sure, come on in." So he didn't know I was 14. My mom went out and bought me my first blue blazer, and she dropped me off from the street corner in downtown Seattle. And she said, "I'll be back in an hour." Okay. So I go walking in. All I had was one of these self-watering flower pots. And I go in and he kind of goes like this, like, "You're a kid." And I said, "Yeah, here it is." And you got some water. And he brought a cup of water. He dumps it into the thing. I set the other thing in and I pulled the thing and water appeared. And he said, "I'm sold." That's literally how I made my first sale.
Wow.
And he said, "Here's what I'm going to do. I want to test it first. I'm going to test it for a year." I said, "Okay." And he said, "I need 4 boxes per store." And there were 24 to a box. So he was basically going to take 100 per store, but he was going to do 20 stores on a test. I think they owned 100 and something, but he was going to test it. So basically I made a deal to sell 2,000 pots, a little bit less than that, but round to 25 times 12. He was going to test for a year. So basically I walked in at 14 years old and sold 24,000 flower pots on the first sales call I ever made in my life. So I go back to this guy. I wish I remember his name. I go back to this guy and I go, "Hey, I made a sale." And he goes, "You did? How many did you sell?" And I said, 24,000. And I kid you not, he panicked so badly. He literally called the company up, not Pay and Pack. He called up the other company, the flower pot company.
The manufacturer.
"I want my money back. I want my money back. I can't do this. I want my money back." Now, the really crazy thing about it is that it was a drop shipping deal. It wasn't like these 24,000 pots were going to come to him and he had to drive them to every store. They were going to drop ship it but success made him really nervous. He was comfortable. He didn't like doing the medical filing, but he was too nervous to do something that would bring him in a lot of money. Because if I was making $1 on every pod, he was making, whatever, probably $3 or $4 on everything.
Yeah, he was making a fortune.
Probably 75 to 100 grand for him. Yeah, I thought it was really interesting that you can take the same situation and some people are nervous in it and other people aren't.
Yeah,
and that was a great lesson for me as a young man.
That's interesting. That it's almost like his mind wasn't there yet. Like his mind, he wanted to sell 50, but his mind, his mentality wasn't that of a person that's worth a couple 100,000. He was probably in his mind worth whatever, 10,000.
Yeah. So his rich uncle probably would have said, something like, go upsell them and, tell them we'll give them half off another additional 1,000 per month if they want them, or, something like that. Because he was, he wasn't nervous about the whole deal, but it was a great lesson for me to learn that. And I use that story a lot today as a success coach and working with entrepreneurs and things like that, sometimes you're going to do something. In fact, in order to be a successful entrepreneur, you have to do something that makes you really nervous. You have to take big chances. You have to take big leaps. If you want to play it safe, there's a lot of corporate jobs. You can go work for somebody else, but as an entrepreneur and things like that, you definitely have to take some risks.
Did you have if you can remember back to being 14, if we could all always have that 14-year-old mentality, sometimes it would help us out. When you walked in there to have that meeting, did you walk in with any nervous at all? Or did you just walk in like a kid normally walks in like, hey, I'm selling this pot?
I don't really remember per se the mood, but it worked. I mean, I guess I've always, I talk to people about this all the time. Both worry and hope are both aspects of imagination, right? So you can say, let's say it's the first of the month and you have or the second of the month, you paid your mortgage yesterday and your next mortgage is due the next month. Some people worry all month long about the first of the next month. And some people are optimistic and hopeful. Well, yeah, my money will come in. But there are people who will spend all month long going, what if I get sick and I can't work? What if I get an unexpected bill? What if my transmission goes out? What if and all they're using is imagination. None of it is reality. It's all right here. And there are other people, like I'm at the point now where people say, do you ever worry about money? And I say no. And one of the reasons I don't worry about money, and believe me, I've had a lot of money, I've had not a lot of money. I've made millions, I've lost millions. But one thing I have to do that makes me not worry about money is look in the mirror. Just go stand in front of a mirror and look at myself and go, look, dude, you have never missed a meal. Obviously, you have never missed a meal. Why on God's green earth would you start missing meals at the age of 55? So I just don't spend a lot of time using my imagination. And I heard a quote a long time ago, which is sort of where this whole concept comes from, that worry is just a misuse of the imagination, because worry is always about something in the future. And in order to see that in your mind's eye, you have to use your imagination. And, my son did a big tech startup and I was talking to him and I just said, he's a little more pessimistic than I am. But he's not pessimistic, but a little more than me. And I always just said, something is going to happen one way or the other. One way or the other, the reality is going to happen if it's on a date or at the end of a thing, whatever. And it's either going to be pro or it's going to be con. It's either going to be good or it's going to be bad. And what you think about it in the meantime, if you just think, oh my gosh, what if it doesn't work? What if it doesn't work? What if it doesn't work? And then it works, you're going to go, why did I waste the last month, 2 months, 3 months worrying it wasn't going to work?
Right.
He says, yeah, but what if you tell yourself it's going to work and it doesn't work? And I'm like, well, at least you didn't feel bad for a month and a half.
It's true.
You might feel bad in the moment, go, I wish this would have turned out, but you didn't have a month and a half. And anybody who's experienced worry and nervousness, it's not something that feels good. So why not at least make yourself feel good? And I'm not talking about pie in the sky optimism, like, hey, you know what? I'm going to win the lotto next month for 400 million.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's the chances of that are minute. But if you put yourself into a situation where you actually have a chance, why spend your time worrying when you can spend your time being optimistic?
So how do you have, so you've been an international speaker, you've spoke to everywhere, the people, 30 years in the industry. Where does your confidence come from when you get out there? How do you maintain that confidence, and how do you go with that to challenge the nervous or the uncomfortable when it comes up?
Well, it has to do with knowing what you're doing. I'll give you an example. Um, I took the ASVAB in high school, which is it's
Okay.
the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery. And apparently I was supposed to be a guy who puts things together. I was supposed to be a mechanic or, something like that, which is completely, totally, utterly laughable to me, because this past weekend, and you're going to laugh. I actually called my son up, because my son he can put together anything. He's a general contractor. He's done a tech startup. Like, minutia detail does not make him nervous at all. But this week, we just moved to Chattanooga, and my wife bought an end table. Now, this end table consists of two pieces that cross like this and a top. Okay. And then a little bar right here that keeps the two things from collapsing. Okay. 4 pieces.
So not real complex. Bolts. Right. Yeah.
4 pieces, 12 bolts, or not even bolts, screws, 12 washers, and 12 lock things. I was nervous as hell. I was like, and then she brought out this new little hamper thing that we're going to put in our laundry room. And you got crossbars, and you got, the curved parts that go into the 2 things that go to, and I put these things on the floor, and I panic, because I'm not wired that way. I don't get it. Anything real minutia detail stuff. When I first met my wife, when we were dating, she was going to come up to Seattle and visit me. And I was living with a buddy. I'd gone through a divorce, and I was living with a buddy. We had a 2-bedroom apartment, and I didn't have a dresser at that point. I'm like, I got to get a dresser. Well, where do you get a halfway decent but not terribly expensive dresser? You get it at IKEA.
Right, there you go. Yeah.
I swear to you, I am never, ever going to buy another single thing from IKEA the rest of my life. This thing became like putting together a nuclear plant for me. It made this 4-piece thing here. This thing was insane. And the worst part was, I got halfway into it, and I realized that I had put something completely, but I had to deconstruct the thing, flip the thing around, and then read it. I kid you not, it took me like 4 days to put this dresser from IKEA together. So when I see those kinds of things, I get nervous, because I'm not wired that way. But I'll give you an example. I run this new conference now that me and a couple partners put together, and it's called the American Freedom Tour. And our first one was in Jacksonville, and we hire these big names, people that you see on the news every night. And one of them was late, and he was going to be 20 minutes late. And my partner hands me the mic and says, "Go kill 20 minutes. He's going to be late." And I said, "All right, announce me." And I walked right onto the stage, and I killed 20 minutes. Not a single thought of what would I say, how will I do, what will I look like, because it's fully right in the center of my skill set. And so I feel like one of the reasons I haven't experienced a lot of nervousness in my life is because I don't do a lot outside of my skill set. To the point, I was telling my son, hey, I was actually bragging in a joking manner, "Hey, buddy, put together an end table today." And he laughed. He's like 31 now. He laughed, and he says, "I can remember all the lawnmowers, all the grills, all the tables that you paid me to put together." Because seriously, when he was 10 years old, I'm like, "Dude, we just got a new push lawnmower. I'll give you $10 to put the handles on and put the little plastic chute that shoots it off to the side." He put together every barbecue we ever bought. And he works that way, and I didn't, and it was worth every nickel to pay him to do it. So I am really good. I'm not very good at putting things together. I'm excellent in paying somebody else to put things together for me.
Now, you mentioned something about off-air confidence, and that applies to being able to go out there when your partner says, "Hey, go kill 20 minutes," and you step right into it. You have no hesitation. Let's go do it. Can you explain again confidence, where it comes from, and how that applies?
Yeah, so confidence is an interesting word. I was raised by a woman, my mother. My dad died when I was 4. My mother raised me, and she loved words, and she taught me to love words, particularly to break them down, to look at what the prefix means, to look at all these kinds of things. And so the word confidence is a fascinating word. Confidence, the prefix of confidence is con, and it means with. How do we know that it means with? For those of us who don't know that kind of thing, well, you've probably all eaten some chili con carne, right? So it's chili with beef, chili con carne. Carne means with. And so con is with, and fide is an old Latin term, which means faith. So for example, Martin Luther, when he tacked all those things up on the Wittenberg door, the 99 Theses, one of the things that the Protestants stood for was sola fide, faith alone, right? So it means faith. So confidence really means with faith, with faith. So self-confidence is with faith in yourself. So people will say, do you need anything? Do you know, whatever, when I'm going to give a speech. And I always tell them, look, if it doesn't matter how many people are there, I've given speeches to 25,000 people. I'm giving speeches to 25 people. I never really have gotten nervous. I had one time I kind of panicked a little bit because I didn't understand the culture of the place where I was at. But I always tell people, but don't ask me to sing the national anthem, right? I can get up. If you said I need 2 hours on this, I'll give you 2 minutes to prepare, and they hand me a microphone, bam, it's done. But if they said, I'll give you an hour to learn the national anthem and prepare to sing it, and it's only going to take you 2 minutes, I would be nervous because it's not, I have no confidence in my singing ability. And the reason why is probably because when I was in college, I did an internship with a church in Fargo, North Dakota as a youth minister. And I got to, it was a big Lutheran church, and the music guy that ran the music there, he and I got to know each other. And one night he says, you should come out and try out for the choir. Just come sing in the choir. And I said, okay, let's do that. He said, practice is Wednesday night. So I show up. And I start singing, and he has me sing a little bit. And when practice was over, he says, let's go get some ice cream. I said, okay, let's go get some ice cream. We go out for ice cream. He said, Chris, I'm baffled. And I said, what are you baffled by? And he said, you have one of the strongest tenor speaking voices I have ever heard. And I'm, oh, that's really cool. And he goes, and somehow it does not translate to singing. So my only attempt
killed your career right there.
Yeah. Although in college in Minnesota, I belonged to these outreach groups. We used to go out and, these little tiny Lutheran churches all across the Midwest, these pastors that have like 3 little churches, and each church has like 12 people in it. And these pastors don't get a lot of vacation. So we had these groups, our college, Concordia College, had these little groups of students that would go in and they'd take over the church service for a weekend so these Lutheran pastors could get a break and go on vacation. Well, they did singing, and then we did preaching, right? I would get up there and I would sing, but I didn't sing very loud, and I let everybody else cover, but I was always the guy that talked. So I gave the sermon. In college, I go to these little Lutheran churches across the Midwest and give sermons. So I never gave a solo. They never said, we should have Chris do the solo this week. Never, because I'm not good at it. But I never had a problem. I never had a problem with speaking because it's my skill set. So what I tell people is stay in your confidence. And if you're not confident, if you're a business person, hire somebody. I have not done my own books or accounting for 30 years because not only would I probably not do them right, I would dread looking at numbers. Numbers scare me to death. Words, I can talk forever. And you're like, yeah, I know, you're doing it right now.
Well,
so anyway,
so we only have a few minutes left actually, but I want to ask you on what you just talked about, confidence, how important it is for people to know their stuff. How important is that to prevent from getting nervous? You spoke about that a second ago.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give you an example, probably 25 years ago or something like that. Based on the story, I'll tell you, somebody can figure it out. I was in Seattle. I gave a speech. I walked off stage. I was still holding the microphone for some reason. And this guy walks up and goes, I'm so impressed. You're a great speaker. He says, I don't know how you can speak for 30 minutes without a note. And I said, well, you could speak for 30 minutes without a note. And he, I could never speak for 30 minutes without a note. I said, sure, you could. I'll prove it to you. And he said, okay, how? I said, what do you do for a living? He said, I work at Boeing. I said, what do you do? He said, I'm an engineer. I said, what are you working on? He said, I'm actually one of the engineers that's designing the wing for the new Boeing 777. So those of you who want to know, you can go look it up on Wikipedia and find out when that was. It was about a year or two before that. Okay. And I said, okay, so if I handed you this mic right now, and I said, give me 30 minutes on the design of a 777, could you do it? And he goes, oh, yeah, easy. And I said, see, because it's about knowing your stuff. A lot of people say, how do you overcome stage fright? I said, first thing, know everything. Because if somebody, let's say you take a Q&A or somebody raises, you're not even going to have a Q&A, but somebody raises their hand and you can't ignore them. So you go, okay, you in the, you know, the red jacket, what do you think? And they ask you a question and you look like a moron, you know, because you don't know. That's what most people are afraid of, is looking like they don't know what they're talking about. That's a really simple fix. Know what you're talking about. Really simple. Know your stuff. If you wanted me to fix a car engine, I'd be like, I don't even know where to start. And I wouldn't. And because of you, we've all gone through an auto manual and all those little tiny pictures and the A and the B and the this bolt and that bolt. And I would panic. But I could walk a car into, you know, half a dozen car dealerships or mechanics around here and say, hey, can you fix my, you know, catalytic converter? And they're like, yeah, come back next Tuesday. It'll be done.
Yeah, no problem.
Because they know it. So I think that's what I always tell people: to overcome nervousness and walk in your confidence is to walk in things that you know cold and you have complete and total self-confidence in.
That's a great lesson. I appreciate it. Wrapping up here, I got to tell everybody, I just devoured your book, Lasting Impact. It's a fantastic book.
Good.
Yeah, it's a great book. And then I got The Angel Inside on order.
Oh, good. That's Angel Inside is my favorite book. It's the one that I love the most. I love that book.
I can't wait till it comes in. What do you have going on right now? And what do you want to share with people that they can follow what you have going on?
Well, I have this new series. About half your audience will like it, and the other half of them will hate it, because we happen to be very politically diverse in our country right now, otherwise known as polarized. Sure. I founded with a couple of friends something called the American Freedom Tour, and it's a conservative tour celebrating American greatness and celebrating the freedoms that we have here in America. And so I'm working on that. My 23rd book comes out in I think September, and it's a fictional story about a billionaire who finds out he has 1 year to live, and how he lives that last year knowing that he's going to die, but experiencing the last wedding anniversary, the last Thanksgiving, the last Christmas, the last, you know, and how he handles that in his mind. And so if they want, they can, it's actually for pre-order. I think somebody told me it's already up on Amazon, but I don't think it comes out till like September. But excited about that. Excited about the American Freedom Tour.
Well, I'm going to put all those links down in the show notes too, so everybody can find that stuff. And I appreciate you for being here, Chris. Such great wisdom. I appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate you too. Thanks for having me on.
You got it. Hey, one last thing before you go, leave a comment. Which example did you most align with from today's show? I'm curious. I want to know. Also, if there's somebody that you want to find out what's made them nervous, leave their name in the comment. I'll try to get them on the show. Follow me on social media at Jake Bolig. Follow the show at Go Find Nervous. And if you don't mind, subscribe. It helps me out the whole algorithm thing. I appreciate it. I'll see you next time. Go Find Nervous.